If there was hell, it would be the place in front of our main character with fire, destruction, and death all around. In front of him, the soldier Kiri is covered with arrows, falling on Burin. Kiri, on his dying breath, tells Burin that it was all he could do, but he can to repay Burin. He tells Burin to lift his sword again, handing the sword to Burin. Kiri tells Burin his final request, for Burin to never stop. Burin, saddened by the death of Kiri, as he picks up the sword, he screams. Kairos is a nation set up by dragons and humans. Kairos asked for the treasure that Burin's homeland Sakrisha had but rejected their proposal. Burin, angered, kills soldiers left and right. From behind Burin, a mage launched a blast of water which cut Burin's hand. Burin then grabbed his sword from his other hand. It was the beginning of Sakrisha's last war. The king of Sakrisha, Burin, was the only person left. The mages then set up magic circles above him. From the magic circle, a huge fire came towards Burin. Burin knows it's too late and feels that he is nearing death, but he won't let something like that stop his path. He is the blade of Sakrisha. He then cuts the huge fire with his sword. Kairos magician Korvalkan was in front of him, and the person who started all of the bloodshed, Kairos Crazy King. Planche, the commander of Valkan, Arson, came to greet Burin. Arson asks what Burin's name is. Burin replies he has forgotten it all and rushes towards him and tells him that he is just a blade that serves the king. Arson smiles, forming ice spears, telling Burin that he will remember the king of Sakrisha as he launches the ice, killing Burin. In that moment, Burin saw his entire life, the fall of his motherland, and the moment all the light disappeared. After opening his eyes, he heard a voice telling him to wake up. The butler ringing his bell asks him if he had sweet dreams. As Burin lays up, the butler tells him to hurry since Prince Plash had already left. Burin is shocked hearing the name of Planche, grabs his arm since it was cut off. The butler is shocked and asks him why he said such a horrible thing. Maids are also shocked hearing that his perfect arm was cut off and if he had a nightmare. Burin then grabs his face with the butler, concerned, asking him if he was okay. The name belonging to the man he hated, his arm that reappeared, attendants he had never seen, and the memories that are not his, filled up his brain. Burin asks who he is, and the butler tells him that he is Kalian Reincarnated, the third prince of Kairos. Truly is a very horrific nightmare for him. After hearing the words Kairos, Kalian wonders what happened, remembering the mages. He then asks what the date is, and the butler tells him it's April 28th. Kalian then asks him what year it is, and the butler says it's the year 522 and asks if something is wrong with him. Kalian is shocked since it is a decade before the last war. The war that started from the axis of time. The axis of time is a strange object that possesses the power to turn back time just once, and suddenly appeared in the royal palace of Sakrisha. As the word spread around, the continent's ruler Kairos began to covet the axis of time as well. They rejected the Kairos' request at once, and they went to war as if they had been waiting for it. Chase requested him not to go since everyone who went to war is dead, and he couldn't lose the rest of them. That day Chase Hyungnim must have witnessed Burin's death. He thinks that Chase thought if he could go to a time before that horrible object appeared. Kalian then jumps out the bed, opening the window. He thinks if by any chance Chase uses the axis to turn back time. He wonders if Chase gave him the last chance to save the end of his motherland, Sakrisha. The butler tells him that it must be hard for Kalian to attend the breakfast gathering, but they couldn't delay any longer. Kalian apologizes for making him wait, and he will get ready. If it is for the sake of making the best of the opportunity, Kalian will make sure to survive as Prince of Kairos. They announce Kalian will have their meal now, and the butler apologizes since he should have hurried more since he didn't expect Prince Randall would be there first. The three princes of Kairos are all half-brothers and belong to the bloodline of the holy state of Tensel. By the king's order, breakfast was prepared for the three princes every morning. Kalian apologizes to Randall for his tardiness. But as per the memories in Kalian's mind, he has always been treated as if he never existed. He couldn't believe Randall ignored him so blatantly and felt like shit. Kalian wonders if he is the only sibling not there. Planche then entered the room with them, announcing his presence. After Planche sits down, Kalian wants to know what the hell he is doing and what member of the royal family wanders around in such a state. He wonders if he really is Planche, the mad king he knew of. He thinks that looking by his attire, they meant mad in a different sense. If Colleen remembers correctly, the first prince can't mess with the second prince because Kyra's present queen is Blanche's mother, and no one within the royal palace would dare defy her authority. Callian sighs, finding it frustrating to think about how he would survive in such a place. While Colleen was drinking from his cup, Planche remarks that Colleen is being imprudent and not a drop of decency in him since he took after his mother. This angered Colleen, and he had to endure it since he can't let the chance chase made for him go to waste. But he keeps feeling something rising up within him all the way to his throat. Planche, the man who destroyed his motherland and wanted to slit his throat in that instant. Planche noticed Colleen's glaring at him. Planche then throws his cup, asking Colleen how he dared to glare at him like that. Randall puts his cup down, telling them it was enough, and both Planche and Colleen look at him. Planche looks at Colleen and then leaves the room, telling them he didn't have an appetite anymore because of Colleen's disgusting blood-colored eyes. Randall then stands up and tells Colleen to watch his behavior, and soon the king's birthday will come, and Randall asks if he wanted to create a ruckus so close to such a special day. Colleen scoffs, thinking that Randall is saying that the situation is his fault and not Planche's, who just left. Colleen's butler asks Colleen if he is okay and if he is hurt anywhere, and he complains not a day goes by without incident, and he cleans Colleen's shoes. Colleen is happy that he at least has a loyal servant who took care of Colleen like his own body despite witnessing the lowly treatment he received every day. He thanks Yen, the butler, for caring about him. Yen knows that normally Colleen would have silently cried, but he is smiling. Kyrus's first queen, Dragon Sisphanian, had hair as dark as the night sky and eyes like sacred flame. Colleen was the only prince that inherited her exterior traits, but his powers were pitiful. Colleen always tried to hide his eyes since Planche hates him. The cause of the obsessive behavior was because of Planche. It feels unpleasant to him since he feels like he was peeking into someone else's memories. But because he hid his eyes because of someone like Planche, Colleen calls himself an idiot. Yen asks him if there is something Colleen would like him to do. Colleen tells him it is nothing and they should go back. Yen asks him why he is acting strange and if he read a novel about a knight the previous night. The third prince was born to a concubine. He didn't have anyone to support him and was afraid of many things. He was a weak individual who didn't even have the power to protect himself, which is the current situation of Colleen. Colleen then asks Yen how old he is, and Yen tells him he will turn 15 in 4 months. He asked that because right before the coming-of-age ceremony Colleen was assassinated. He tried to poison Queen Celise and failed and hung himself out of fear of punishment is what the public was told, but no one believed it to be the truth. Someone will come for him soon. Colleen then rushed to his room with Yen telling him to slow down. There is only a couple of months before his death, and when he doesn't know what happened to his original body, Burin, he can't just do nothing and wait. Colleen asked Yen for the scissors which he brought. Colleen took the scissors and Yen asked why he needed the scissors. Colleen told him it was to change things as he started to cut his hair. If there was a predetermined fate, Colleen would twist it. The maids and Yen are horrified by what he is doing. Yen tells him that Planche will hate it. Colleen tells him that he can't live like an idiot just because Planche didn't like something about him. He tells them not to worry since he will take care of things. Planche the next morning tells him that he is out of his mind. Yen then panics if that was what he meant by taking care of things. When Planche calls him out by calling him Bloody Eyes, Colleen stops him and tells him that his name is Colleen. While grabbing a knife, Planche says that he should be calling Colleen by his name as he throws the knife towards him to the horror of the maids and Yen. When the knife reached Colleen, he grabbed it with his hands, making it bleed. Yen calls out to Colleen for his injuries being severe. Planche then mockingly says that his hand slipped and Colleen's hand got hurt. Colleen then went over to Planche, putting the knife down, telling him that he is fine with whatever. Colleen then bandages his arm and tells him that they should call a healer. Colleen tells him not to since it is only a small cut, and he asks Yen why he didn't dodge earlier. He knew that the attack was headed for him, and Colleen asks what he would have done if he didn't block it, and Colleen tells Yen that he should be able to avoid an attack like that. Yen tells him that if he dodged, Planche would have used that as an excuse to hurt Colleen. He then tells Yen that thanks to that he bled and his heart is pounding and he might be able to calm down if he washed his face and no one came in. Yen tells him that he will help Kalian, and Kalian tells him that he would do it alone and to not even think of bringing a healer when he is gone. Earlier, Kalian was about to subconsciously use the aura for Planche's attack because he felt a sudden pain in his heart. He decided to reenact that scene and confirm the body's condition. While examining the body, he found something weird. He could feel 3 mana circles in the vicinity of his heart. Kalian was a magician. After a few days, Yen was treating Kalian's injuries. Scolding him, it has already been 3 days and his injuries are the same. Kalian said he was fine, then a tailor came up to them telling them that the preparations are completed. After seeing Kalian but stopped after seeing Kalian. Kalian asks him what was wrong. The tailor apologized, telling him he didn't mean to, but Freya, and before he could complete saying anything, Yen stopped him. Rage Tailor then apologized again. Kalian was getting tired of seeing that reaction after cutting his hair. Kalian suffered for a long time because he looked similar to the mother he never met and started to hate looking at his face to the point where he got rid of all the mirrors in the room. Kalian tells him it is fine and knows he looks like Freya and tells him to do what he was going to do. After taking the measurements, the tailor tells him that he needed to eat more and is worried because of how small he is. Kalian tells him that he is eating well but knows that that would make others worry. The Kairos royal family are the descendants of dragons and, to be exact, are descendants of 2 of the 8 heroes who sealed the evil god, Hakura and Sisfanian. Sisfanian gave the direct line of Kairos royalty, the power of healing and ability of magic Sisfanian's blessing, which meant Kalian's injury should have healed a long time ago but hasn't. And every time he uses mana, he feels a pain in his heart. This is troubling since at that rate, he won't be able to use aura or magic and die when the assassin comes. The tailor tells him that he had prepared some clothes that would be perfect for the king's birthday. Kalian then remembers on the king's birthday, then the great magician, Elon Manisil, should be there too, and Kalian needs to meet him. Elon Manisil is one of the only 3 or 4 people who are 7th circle magicians and the idol of all magicians. In the past, Elon was invited to the king's birthday and visited Kairos, and the stories of how an incident led him to be refused at the door reached the neighboring nation, Sakrisha. Elon, who couldn't participate in the festivities, was raised to an 8th circle magician 10 years later as the only magician to do so in the continent and prove his abilities. Since there is no one like him when it comes to knowledge of mana, and he would be able to help with Kalian's body problem. Kalian doesn't know what the incident is, but Kairos doesn't treat magicians well and wonders if he would agree to his request. The reason that countless knights traverse Kairos Kingdom is due to the influence of Planche's mother family, the Brisen family. Even if it is to keep Brisen's power in check, he needs the power of magicians, and if he brings Elon to his side, he might be able to stop the war that Planche will start. But before that, he needed to take care of the maids, Taylor and Yen, because they were too excited about his clothes. He tells them no ribbons or frills. They are shocked by hearing that. He asks them if they thought he would be okay with lace and what is up with the bells. While drinking some tea, he realizes that he is getting used to that life now. His hand has completely healed and Planche has been ignoring him, which is better for him. Yen tells Kalian his routine. In the morning he has horseback riding lessons, and in the afternoon he has dinner plans with the Queen and Viscount Brisen. Kalian is confused. Yen tells him it's probably because of the king's birthday plans. Kalian sighs, knowing he would bump into the Viscount eventually. Yen asks him if he is going to train his stamina today as well. Kalian tells him even if it was stamina training, it is just running in front of the lake. He tells Yen to not worry much and what could happen. After running for a while, Kalian stops since it feels like he is going to die. From behind Marilyn Fiat, his maid asks him if he is okay. She tells him that on the first day he did 4.5 laps, third day 4 laps, and today only 3 laps. Kalian knows that he is exercising, but his stamina is falling and there is a problem. She tells him if it is very hard, she can call the healer, and Kalian tells him it's not necessary, since if a healer is called, the magic circles will be exposed right away. Even Yen doesn't know that he is a magician and his life could be endangered. If he acts recklessly, he would die. He tells Marilyn that his stamina had fallen, so what use a healer would be and would get better as time passes. They then hear someone scream to not look away and read the direction of the blade and to get their mind together. Marilyn tells him that the knights had already begun training. The trainer told the soldiers to not look away from the blade if it was the battlefield. They'd be dead. Looking at the training, Kalayan was reminded of old times. Marilyn tells him that it is the training ground of the Pable Knight Corps. Kalayan tells her that he knows and was watching because it was interesting. Marilyn was shocked hearing that from him who had no ties to the sword, and Kalayan tells her he could have gained interest then. She asks him if he doesn't know what kind of place the Pable Knight Corps is. He tells her that he knows they are the Royal Knight Corps and are the Knight Corps of the Bresson family. The commander asks who they are and if they had no business asked them to leave. He told them that the knights are bothered by their gazes and can't train properly. Marilyn told him to show Kalayan respect since he is the third prince. The commander is cleaning his teeth seeing that he is Prince Kalayan and that he thought Kalayan was a rat who was secretly watching. Kalayan was staring at him. Kalayan is getting angry because of what is happening. Marilyn says to the commander that he is in front of the prince and asks him how he dared to say something so imprudent. The commander said that he almost mistook him though and why she is being sensitive about it and tells her to look at the prince who isn't, and before he can finish the sentence he looks at Killian and gets afraid. The commander thinks what is happening, and back in the day when he scolded the prince for getting in his way, the prince would apologize and move out of the day. He was a weak prince, and now the commander wonders what is with his newfound spirit. Killian then asks the commander what his duty is. The soldiers then come up asking the commander what the matter is. The soldiers notice the third prince and wonder what the nuisance is doing there. The commander remembers that he is the third prince that even the knights look down on. The commander with his newfound confidence tells him that as he can see they are in the middle of training and can't answer him, and tells him to continue his task. Marilyn is getting concerned, and Killian tells the commander that he is asking a question and to tell him what his duty is. Looking at the atmosphere, the knights talk amongst themselves. The commander tells him it's to strengthen the royal family's forces and to protect the royal family and the kingdom. Kalayan, while breaking a branch, tells him he is correct about strengthening and protecting. As the branch broke, he continued that the commander is a failure in both of the duties he mentioned. The commander, angered, asked him what he was talking about. Kalayan starts with strengthening the royal family's forces, but if he had to describe what he saw till then, his training is a mess. To everyone's shock, Kalayan then went back and slashed the branch around as he went to attack the commander. The commander knew if he failed to block the attack, he would die. He takes out his sword and blocks Kalayan's hit. The commander is shocked because of the power in the branch. Kalayan then, smiling, let go of the stick, which made the sword go flying. Kalayan tells him that he couldn't believe the commander predicted the movements of someone like him, who hasn't held a sword once, and is disappointed. He continued on the second one. The commander is shocked with the resolve and the murderous intent. Kalayan continued that the protector of the royal family and kingdom called the prince in a derogatory manner and hurt a prince while wielding a sword against him. Kalayan asks him if he should consider that as treason. The commander then gets scared and wonders if he is the third prince he knew. He got on his knees and apologized to Kalayan, and he didn't mean to commit treason and to forgive him. For the third prince to humiliate him like this, the commander will never forget it. After reaching home, Yen asks Kalayan, since someone who said he is going for stamina training came back with a horse. Kalayan told Yen that he picked it up on the way and his name is Raven. Yen then asks him where he had been and how he ended up fetching a horse. After the commotion settled down, Kalayan asked the knights what was up with that horse. They told him that Planche failed to tame that horse and he is quite ferocious. Yen then screamed at him asking if it is okay for him to bring Prince Planche's horse like that. Kalayan said that anyone could use him, finders keepers. He then tells Marilyn to keep the incident a secret. Yen is panicking if he finds out, and Kalayan reassures him that it's fine and if anything happened, as he said that he clutched his heart to Yam and Marilyn's panic. Like Kalayan thought, he pushed the body too much, and Yam asked him if the stamina training was too much for him today. Kalayan tells him that it wasn't anything like that and he had a good time playing around with someone, and tells Yen that at that rate dinner would be late. Someone who was listening to them left. In a garden, a person talks about what Kalayan said and found it interesting, since even worms writher when stepped on, and even if someone like him tried to writher, one can change their origins. It wouldn't have been fun for them to just kill him and to watch for now. Kalayan with the other princes can't adjust to that atmosphere even though he experiences it every day. He wonders why Planche is so low on energy today and if the queen and viscount being late is his fault. He thinks that Planche really can't control his expression and is still a child. He then smells a scent and smiles maniacally since she is finally there. The true power behind the kingdom, Queen Celise Brisson. After the previous queen passed away from illness, Celise rose to that position, borrowing her family's power, the Brisson, and seized control of the royal knight corps. The majority of the nobles also supported the Brisson family each day. Her power grew, and the powerless Prince Collian became laughable to even a mere commoner. The Viscount suggests a way to deal with Commander Pable, and the queen agreed to pay an adequate compensation. She told him not to report every little thing like that in the future. After sitting down, she glares at Collian, saying that she did not need to pay attention to trivial things. She tells Collian that he had grown much as of late. Collian smiles at that reaction, which he expected, and tells her that he didn't grow much but will be sure to grow much more in the future. The queen and the first prince are shocked by that reply. The queen then gets more frustrated. The Viscount tells him whether he had grown much or not. He almost didn't recognize Collian, and that now he is showing his face. It was nice to see and should have cut his hair sooner. Viscount Renan Brisson is Marquis Brisson's second son. He continues to compliment him that since Collian is in a period of growth, he would grow taller. The queen then called out to her brother, and the Viscount panics and tells them to bring out the food. Collian is shocked to see the owner of Brisson Emporium being slow-witted. He is fascinated by the fact that the rumors are true. The queen then calls out Planche, asking him why he didn't tell her about his horse, which didn't follow him, and would have been nice if he told her ahead of time. Planche smiles and tells her that she was already aware. She tells him that he didn't tell her that it completely left his grasp. Planche tells her that it was a useless horse to begin with. Planche then took his leave first, which angered the queen. 3 weeks later, it is the annual king's birthday celebration. The streets are busy. There are congratulatory delegations sent by the elves where there were all presents, and the commoners thought that the princes were busy at the moment. While the tailor was measuring Collian, he was confused and asked Collian if he had been eating. Then, to his horror, Collian started to bleed from his nose. Yen orders the maid to bring some fabric, and Collian tells him that it's fine. He tells them it's because he hasn't slept properly lately. Yen tells him that that's not the problem. The tailor then also says that Collian had lost more weight and he wasn't that skinny 3 weeks ago. Collian then starts to make light of the situation and tells the tailor it must be because he has been exercising too much. He has been working hard, but his stamina keeps getting worse, and by the fact that the pain when he uses mana is still there, he assumes he must have a problem in his heart. The tailor tells him it isn't a matter he should be speaking so lightly about and asks him if he has gotten a checkup. Collian tells him that it's not that bad, and why would he need a checkup for a small nosebleed. The tailor with teary eyes tells him it's not just the nosebleed. Yen then says that it is because Collian was picking his nose yesterday, and it must be hard to tell everyone about such a personal hobby. Yen saying that shocked everyone, even Collian. Yen continues that, as he has been saying, Collian is eating well and exercising well, and the nosebleed must be because of his hobby and to not worry much. The tailor believed him since Yen was the one who said it. Yen then blinked at a confused Collian. When Yen asked Collian if he really was okay, since the worse Collian's body condition gets, the more it feels like he was going to faint, he explained to Yen he could use magic and it was due to a mana issue. The bewildered Collian is amazed Yen decided to ruin his image like that, but it was a relief that they got it over with. The tailor then tells them that he will mend the clothes, but the issue would be the lack of time. Yen tells him that it wouldn't be an issue since Collian has other things to do. The tailor finds it a huge relief since he can mend the clothes for the event in the afternoon first. Yen then whispers to Collian if it is today. At that rate, Collian's health will be known throughout the palace, so before tonight, he needs to meet Elon at all costs. The butler went to the princes telling them that since the king had urgent business to deal with, the prince luncheon had been cancelled, and instead of that he would be meeting everyone one-on-one. Collian is confused by that decision since he doesn't have time to meet together but wanted to meet them one by one, and it would be more effective to meet everyone at once. He didn't expect a private meeting and is getting a bit nervous. He enters the room where the king is. In the room, the king of Kairos, Romain Lurun Kairos, was sitting there. Collian greets the king, and to Collian's shock, he gets completely ignored. Even if Collian was ignorant of Kairos etiquette, he knew that this was rude. Romain tells him to sit in front of him, and Collian congratulates him on his 38th birthday. Romain asks him how he had been and that he looks good. Kalian then is shocked hearing that since even his attendants know that he has been emancipating rapidly. Kalian then knew why he wanted to see them one by one, since if he meets all three sons at once, he needs to focus on making conversation, and meeting one at a time is more efficient, since to him spending time with his sons who are there to congratulate him on his birthday is a waste. The more he gets to know the family, the more of a mess it is, with a father who doesn't care about his sons. The first prince is indifferent to everything, the second prince who has no etiquette, and the queen who has enough power to look down on the king. The princes and the queen entered the room with the king, and among them, someone is trying to kill Kalian. The people are talking about how at the square event, Prince Kalian appeared before the people completely transformed, while the second prince looked completely drunk. They suppose that won't change anything, and the busybodies are just making a fuss about it, and everyone felt something was different, and that unlike the past, something changed. They then announced the third prince, Kalian, would be entering the room. The people there are shocked, since the rumors were true, and the prince with black hair and red eyes who resembled Sasfanian, trimmed the bangs covering his face, and is even wearing the red brooch, and that it might have been the declaration he won't hide anymore. Yen then whispers to Kalian, asking why everyone was looking at his outfit. Yen then gets happy, since he thought it is because Kalian looks so great in that outfit. Kalian sighs and tells him that they are looking since they are thinking how someone like the third prince came wearing such jewels, and asks Yen if he knew how hard it was to stop the tailor. Kalian tells Yen to be glad that he stopped at that, and if he had put them all in it would be worse, but Yen tells him that he looks great. Those two were the most clueless about it all, since that's how they chose the brooch so thoughtlessly. Kalian asks Yen if his family is in Kairesis, the capital of Kairos too. Yen tells him that his sister and father are back in their hometown, and the rest of the family lives in Kairesis. Kalian asks him when they will come to the royal palace. Yen tells him that they will if they receive an invitation, and then Yen asks Kalian when he should have Raven on standby in the garden. Kalian notices that he doesn't want to answer the question and tells him to wait for the right timing. Kalian tells him that he had someone he would like to see, and Yen gets excited by hearing that. Kalian asks him if he knows why the ballroom is called the Siegfried Hall. Yen tells him that of course he knows that, and it is because it's named after the surname of the first patriarch and one of the 8 heroes of the Two-Way War, Duke Kito's Han Siegfried. The only duke family in Kairos, Siegfried, despite possessing great power, have stayed loyal to the royal family for as long as 500 years with the commitment to defend the territory of Sasfanian. Kalian was so impressed to hear that when he was Burin. Yen asks him if the person he wants to meet is, and as Kalian was about to respond, someone's laugh roared across the room. Yen tells him that he happened to be right there, Duke Slayman Han Siegfried. A family with such long-standing loyalty is the type of people Kalian likes. He then decides to check how sharp Slayman is by releasing a bit of mana. Sensing it, Slayman turns around to look at Kalian. As Kalian expected, Slayman found him instantly, even if he let a tiny bit flow. Yen tells him that Slayman is showing interest in him. He is one of the 5 swordmasters of the continent, and Kalian knows there is no way he wouldn't pick that up. Kalian tells him that he is quite grateful for that, but it is still too early, and tells Yen to act like he didn't notice. Romain thanks everyone for congratulating them and to enjoy their night. While that was happening, Yen and Kalian went down the castle using a rope. Kalian then climbs up on Raven, petting him, saying as expected he is smart and gentle. Yen tells him to not be fooled, and when he isn't around he just sighs. Kalian tells him that seeing how quick-witted Raven is, he is very smart. Yen asks him if they just had to go to the front gate. In the front gate, the soldiers tell a man that he can't enter without an invitation, and even though he came a long way to join the festivities, he can't enter. Kalian smiles, knowing that he is here. The man asks them if they are refusing him because of the invitation, and that his name is Elon Manisil. The soldiers tell him that even if he said that he needed an invitation. Elon smirks, saying that Kairos differentiates their guests' class by their appearance. Kalian notices that it is a problem to differentiate people by how they dress, but Elon is nitpicking on purpose, as if he is trying to find a reason to not enter Kairos. Elon then gets ready to leave, which Kalian can't allow. Yen tells him they can't go outside since it is the king's order to not allow anyone outside the duration of the festival. Since they will lose him at that rate, Kalian tells Yen to do anything to stop the soldiers, and Kalian follows Elon while on Raven. The soldiers tell Kalian to stop his horse, and going outside is not allowed per the king's order. Raven jumps over the soldiers going out the gate. When the soldiers were going to get their horses to follow him, Yen remembers Kalayan telling him to stop them. He has to protect the prince by any means since it is his responsibility as his attendant. Yen tells the soldiers to stop and tells them that Duke Siegfried has allowed Kalayan to leave. The soldiers ask him who he is to be using the Duke's name so freely. Yen takes off his ribbon telling them that he is Saroyan Siegfried, the eldest son of Duke Siegfried. Slayman was laughing while sitting with Yen, and Yen tells his father that it isn't something to laugh about. Wiping his tears, he tells Yen that he can't believe his son did something that clever. Slayman pats Yen's head because Yen is the son who left them to raise a little kid. Slayman tells him that it was a good decision. Yen tells him it wasn't since His Majesty will ruin the relationship between them and the king. Slayman tells him that the king won't ask about Yen's confusion. Slayman continues Romain thinks too much, and if Kalayan got help from Siegfried, he will be put in a position where he is alert from their goodwill. If there is a relationship and he receives help but does not get a punishment, it will be the same as acknowledging that the relationship between their family and the prince and the Brisson family will find fault if he does. That is why Romain will bury it like it never happened regardless of what the reason behind leaving was. Kalayan is still following Elon. Elon stops telling him it didn't seem like he was there to criticize him for not having an invitation. He takes off his hoodie asking why the third prince of Kyrus is following that old man. Kalayan heard that once you reach the seventh circle, aging regresses, and it seems like he found just that. Kalayan asks him since it has gotten so late and he is just going back. Elon says when he tried opening a closed door, it seems the threshold was too high. Kalayan then becomes annoyed and wonders if he is trying to talk to him backhandedly, and there is nothing he can do for Elon. Kalayan says it's because he went to a closed door when another one was open for him. Kalayan wonders where Elon put the invitation for him to nitpick. Kalayan tells him that he was busy blocking the wind and that he forgot to clean the dirt on the threshold. He doesn't expect the guards to make a mistake while trying to keep people out. Elon is confused since Kalayan is not apologizing but criticizing him and wonders if he is honest or just shameless. Elon smiles, finding Kalayan a fun prince. He says to himself when he first saw Kalayan it didn't seem like the gaze of a 14-year-old. Elon then notices Kalayan's hand and grabs his hand, telling Kalayan to excuse him for a moment. Kalayan asks him what he is doing and Elon puts his mana in him, which makes Kalayan's heart hurt. Elon's mana is flowing into him, which hurts Kalayan, and he uses Raven to get back from Elon. Elon, looking at his hand, said that even with the doors shut, wind cannot be completely blocked. Kalayan knows that Elon has already taken notice of the state of his body. He repeats what Kalayan says about wind cannot be blocked and that he is right from a certain standpoint he could not use mana. Elon notes that the problem isn't mana and wonders if Kalayan really doesn't know that the real problem is somewhere else. Elon clenches his hands since the Kyrus treat mages poorly despite being descendants of dragons. The great mage came to such a family on his own, and the intention was to make a fool out of them for losing the great mage from right under their noses. Elon, however, wonders if he can really call this meeting between them fate. Elon asks Kalayan why Kalayan wanted to meet him. Kalayan knows that Elon will know if he lies. Kalayan tells Elon that he believes that his life will be at risk soon. It's not that Elon is unaware of the situation the third prince is in, the prince hated by all, the prince surrounded by enemies. Elon sets up a silent magic barrier as he gets off his horse. Kalayan is amazed by it since he can cast it without saying anything. Elon asks Kalayan if his goal is to simply stop his death or is he trying to get rid of the root cause. Kalayan smiles, telling him that he is trying to prevent his death for now. Elon is confused by what he says for now. Kalayan continues saying he wants to eliminate the source of the problem and if he needs to take the throne for the sake of getting what he wants, that is. Elon smiles because the throne is just an option for him to reach his final goal when is a prince with nothing but a dying body. The prince who took after Sisfanian needs Elon for his goal. Finding it interesting, Elon asks Kalayan for the invitation again. Kalayan kneels in front of Elon and greets his mentor. Elon accepts Kalayan's invitation. Elon decides that he will save Kalayan. Yen asks Slayman if he is sure that the people in the royal palace don't know who he is. Slayman tells him not to worry since he took care of it. Yen thinks and says that if they recognized him, he couldn't stay by Kalayan's side. Slayman says that he is his son but doesn't seem royal. Yen then asks about Leah and how she is. Slayman tells him that she is doing great in the position of the lower family head, which Yen abandoned. Slayman tells him that if he wants to stop playing servant for a kid, he can come back any day. Slayman signs saying they won't be seeing each other for a while, and Yen asks him what he is talking about since they will see each other in 3 months. Slayman asks him if he really is thinking of giving up his position as Kalyan's servant. Yen tells Slayman that Kalyan will be 15 soon. Slayman looks at his son and asks him if he knows the nickname of the Siegfried family. Their nickname is the Elephants of Kairos. Slayman continues that for a long time they never vied for the throne but are powerful and are called the king of animals, who even beasts can't touch. When Yen asks him why he suddenly asked that, Slayman puts him on a chokehold saying that he is only saying his name, which Yen sold off as strong, so do whatever he wants to do. Slayman then chokes him harder, saying that bastard, making him worry about Yen. Yen begs him to stop since it hurt him and was going to die. Yen then calls Slayman by Duke Siegfried, and hearing that, Slayman tells him to go away immediately. Yen bows to him saying that he will see them next time. He then left with Slayman sighing at the pointless stubbornness of Yen, and he definitely is a Siegfried. Slayman wonders when Kalyan grew so much and wonders what he is thinking of doing. The people in the streets are wondering if they are seeing things correctly and if it really is the crest, 7 red flowers and a silver cane. They heard that the contract between Reborn was over, and how come they are visiting Kairos. They say that it's an obvious decision since he experienced something like that, and if it wasn't for the relationship between him and the king of Reborn, he would have left already. They think that the rumor of Elon's son being poisoned is true. Elon then gets off the chariot thinking that his new disciple did something very cute. Kalyan told Elon at 9:30 exactly he needed to come through the open door at that time. The people wonder if the king is planning to compete with the Brisson family, and that won't be easy. Elon notes that Kalyan was waiting for the time for him to show off to the nobles and shake the game up. The butler comes up to Elon saying that they are shocked by his visit and that His Highness is waiting. In the room, Romain is shocked and hears that Elon wanted a place to stay in Kairos. Elon confirms that and says he needs a place to stay in Kairos. In order to compete with Solis, Romain was thinking that he needed a power like Elon but did not expect him to make the offer first and wants to know what he is planning. Elon says that last night he saw a black cat with red eyes confusing Romain. Elon continues saying that he was quite intelligent and wanted to teach him a few things but didn't have a place to stay. Romain asks Elon what he was going to teach him. Elon replies magic, of course, and not only that, he wants to make an environment the cat will like, and if he wants to do that he needs the help of the owner of the house and clean the house up a bit. Romain is shocked hearing that and asks Elon if he will be able to handle that. Elon says that he decided to take Kalyan as his disciple so Brisson can't stop him, and he won't be able to only teach magic all day long. So if this board master decides to help Romain, they can't stop him. They were all thoughts of Prince Kalyan's true invitation. Romain stands up telling him that he will provide Elon a place to stay. Since the house is already a mess, it can't get worse. Romain then, for some reason curious, tells Elon that he heard Kalyan isn't special. Elon is confused when he hears Kalyan is not special since even his health condition is uselessly special, and it's to the point where it is hard to find anything normal. Romain continues saying that he heard Kalyan has a lot of fears and to think the child who was apparently scared of horses chased after Elon. Elon is confused because earlier Romain is only talking about what he has heard. Elon then asks Romain if he knows Kalyan's height. Elon looks at the silent Romain with disgust since he thought Romain didn't know anything. He says to Romain that at times, attention can be poison and indifference can be remedied. However, Elon knows that being busy is just an excuse. Romain tells Elon he will take his current attitude of him, not knowing his place, to be his concern as Kalyan's teacher. Romain says it's ridiculous for him to say this, but he cherishes the princes enough, especially Kalyan is precious to him. When Romain was about to leave, Elon set up a barrier to not let him. Elon tells him to take a look. Romain asks him what he is doing and how he is using magic in the palace. Elon says Kalyan's lips are dry and he is breathless. His skin has a bluish tinge to it and his fingernails look purplish underneath. His clothes were fixed in a hurry, and considering the fact that his clothes were prepared a month ago, he must have lost a lot of weight. He tried standing up, unable to raise his body with his eyes closed. He feels dizzy. Romain can't believe it. Ellen tells him if keeps being a bystander he will lose it all. Outside Kallian's room, a maid came telling Yen that Colleen still didn't have his morning tea. Yen told her to give him the tea and he will take care in case Colleen coughs. Colleen was still sleeping and Yen thinks yesterday was too hard on him. From behind Yen, Elon appeared saying that Colleen is still not awake, scaring Yen, making him throw the tea but managing to catch it. He then asks Elon where he is going and stops him, asking him how he can act so discourteously. The outsiders can't enter Shermill Palace without permission. Yen tells him to leave since Kallian's health still isn't good. Elon then asks Yen if he knows who he is. Elon says that he came to Reborn a few years ago and asks him if he thinks he wouldn't recognize Yen just because he grew up also calling him Baby Elephant. Duke Siegfried told Yen to not worry since no one will suspect him, but he got caught way too quickly. Colleen wakes up and asks Yen how long he slept for. Yen tells him that he has a guest, pointing at Elon. Elon gives Colleen a bag telling him to take it. Colleen opens it and finds balls with pearl colors. Elon tells him to make sure to eat one daily without forgetting. Colleen asks him if it is medicine. Elon says he is facing two issues. One is he can't manage his mana and the other being that his body is thinning extremely rapidly. Colleen says that he didn't even say anything yet. Elon always seems to see through what is happening with him. Elon asks him if he has the power of the blessing, to which he says he has it, although it feels like even that healing power is somehow gone. He asks Elon if he has a problem in his heart. Elon asks him if he has never thought of that strange combination of blend of healing powers and magic. Colleen tells him he has wondered that the power of blessing strengthened his heart since origin of both mana and life is the heart. Elon says he is correct since the power of blessing does strengthen the heart, but his power didn't disappear and neither has his heart malfunction nor is his mana blocked. Colleen asks them what is happening. Elon then asks him if has ever thought that Sisfanian's blessing didn't disappear but is being used somewhere else. The power of blessing is affected by something so it can't even heal tiniest wounds. Colleen asks him if he is being poisoned. Elon tells him if it wasn't for the blessing he would be dead already. Healing such a deadly poison puts a strain on his heart and its healing power is at its limit. On top of that, he tried to use mana, which is why his heart rejected it. Originally Colleen was assassinated, but Colleen wonders that he was already poisoned before he possessed the body. He realizes that it wasn't something planned shortly before it was carried out. Colleen gets really angry since they hanged the child that was going to die anyway. Elon notices his bloodlust and knows that it's not the kind of bloodlust a 14-year-old can possess. Elon wonders what he is. Colleen, holding the medicine, says that it must be the antidote. Elon says it was made in a rush, but he is sure it will still work. Colleen then asks if he took both the poison and antidote together. Elon is shocked hearing that. He tells Colleen even if he took the antidote, if he took the poison with it, the antidote will only slow down its effects. Colleen tells him that that's good enough. Elon asks him again if he plans on taking them both and if he knows the culprit. Colleen says that he has an inkling and that the source of the poison is the tea he drinks every morning. Since he drinks it in front of everyone, it's easy to see if he hasn't taken it and no one is taking the tea with him, so they thought it was the safest method. Colleen thinks that the previous Colleen noticed what was happening to his body and rejected the tea full of poison, and maybe that is why he was assassinated. The situation has changed after possessing his body, and he doesn't know what method they will use to try to kill him. So until he figures out the method, he needs to keep it all a secret. Elon asks him if that really is the reason. Colleen says if it gets out that morning tea is the problem, then Yen and the other servants would be at risk. Since the culprit has been doing it regularly, he is sure it meant that they were sure they wouldn't be caught. Elon says the baby elephant will be fine due to Kallian's confusion. Elon then asks what he will do now. He remembers when he was Burn, his father telling him, in order to take someone else's trump card, you need to offer something of his first. It was at times like that Burn is reminded of his father. Colleen requests Elon to escort him outside the palace. Planche's attendants told him to wake up since Celise had come there. She opened the curtains of his bed, telling him that it looked like it was late to be preparing for afternoon schedules. Celise, looking at him, scolds him about him reeking about alcohol. She scolds him for not getting it together despite being banned from drinking at the square ceremony. Planche asks her why she is there and to answer that and leave. She tells him Kalian has got a mentor and it is the 7th Circle Mage Elon and the Aristocats are already wavering. Planche dismisses that and Celise goes to his face and tells him to make sure the effort she invested in him doesn't go to waste and to get ready immediately. She continues that there will be many eyes watching him and he better not disappoint her. Planche, angered, throws his glass, making his hand bleed. He ordered everyone to get out right now. He then angrily calls out Kalian's name in his head. The people on the streets were congratulating Romain on his birthday. Kalian, Planche, Randall and Celise are in the rally too. A kid tells his dad that all the princes have come out. The dad tells his kid that the one at the very last is the one he wanted to see badly, Prince Kalian. Yen with concern asks Kalian how his body is, and it is a relief that his complexion is better than yesterday. Kalian tells him it is because he rested well. He thinks it's because of the antidote, but it has gotten easier to breathe and the pain in his heart decreased. Yen complains that the day's plans are too much after the parade, a horseback riding show, and then a ball, concerned that he will get another nosebleed at that rate. Kalian tells him to not worry much and he can meet the subjects in good condition. He then notices 2 people in an alley. It was Kiri and someone else. He wonders what Kiri is doing in Kairos. Raven also notices them and tries to go over there with Yen trying to stop him. Kalian orders Raven to go forward and Yen asks him if it is because there is something over there as Kiri leaves. Kalian then pets Raven, telling him that he felt it too, but they can't go right now. Kalian says for Kiri to wait since he will come find him. Melfer Poloon greets Romain, saying he is honored to save him and hopes that the performance will satisfy him. Kalian notes Baron Melfer since he is the one that prepared the horse riding show instead of the Brisson family, due to which he got swept away in a useless war of nerves. If Kalian's memory serves him right, Randall will get hurt in the horseback riding show and Poloon gets hanged. Poloon leads them inside, saying they had prepared special seats for them. Kalian looks at the ceiling, looking at the chandelier that is going to fall. He finds it weird since it's an event the king himself is attending and the knights would have checked something like that, and in a situation where the Brisson family's Knight Corps are on standby. Thinking of the Pable Knight Corps reminds him of that annoying commander. Kalian decides to give Poloon an opportunity to live. While Pable leads the way, Kalian whispers to Pable, saying he feels uneasy about the chandelier above his head and to examine it. Pable looks at the ceiling, confused. While the horseback riding show was happening, Pable is getting excited since he never thought a day like that would come to have the honor to sit beside the king. He has prepared so much and can't miss out on the opportunity, but looks at Kalian, which reminds him if he checked the ceiling. When Pable examines the chandelier, he finds a broken rope. If it weren't for Kalian's advice, he gets scared of imagining it. He then wonders how Prince Kalian knew about it. Kalian is impressed that Poloon gave up sitting next to the king, and his judgment is quite useful, and he is decisive and knows how not to chase the immediate benefits before him but further. Kalian asks himself why the Brisson family have their guards up against Poloon to the point where they would cause such a commotion. He then notices Planche looking at him. Planche tells him that he doesn't know his place. The announcer below tells the people to calm down since it isn't the end. Planche continues, saying that he feels so disgusting that he felt like gagging with his pathetic dirty blood-red eyes, which Celise, Romain and Randall heard. Kalian then looks away, not knowing what Planche was planning, but he didn't think Planche would be of use. He then mentally asks Celise how long she will continue to be dragged down for. Celise gets angry because she warned Planche so often, and when she looked at Planche he just smiled away. Celise realized that he did that on purpose and asked why today. The nobles then start talking about the rumor about the second prince and how he could say such a thing in front of his highness, and they can't support him in that situation. They then wonder if it's Kalian who Elon supports. Wouldn't he be suitable as a crown prince, and they can't stand idly by and need to make a decision. The performance is finished and Randall avoided the unfortunate accident, and Romain didn't show much reaction to the incident with Planche. Although it was the situation he wanted, Celise is being too quiet to assume that the incident with Poloon was something she planned. He wonders if Celise didn't expect today's incident too. Kalian remembers when he was Burin and with his brother playing chess. His brother asks him if the incident in Kairos was a terror incident targeting the royals. Burin asks him if there is another external reason to hurt the prince, and his brother tells him that it wouldn't be fun if he told Burin so easily. His brother then asks him to make a bet, to which Burin reminds his brother how much money he owes. He then gives Burin a hint saying that the incident felt too explicit, as if they wanted to get caught for targeting royalty. If the second most powerful Emporium owner in Kairos was removed, the person who would benefit the most is Renan Brisen, the most powerful Emporium in Kairos. Kallian asks Yen what important business the Poloon Emporium owns, and he tells him that it is probably their diamond mine. Kallian realized that if Poloon disappears, the Brisen Emporium gets to wield market influence over diamonds. Kallian praises Renan for using his brain quite well, and since he wanted to save Poloon as well as observe the situation, he should get some payment for saving his life. Kallian tells Yen to cancel all of his plans after the performance. Yen then panics since most of the nobles will be at the ball. Kallian then acts saying the comments he heard earlier shocked him, and he won't be able to participate in the ball. In the palace, Romain was sitting there wondering what has been happening and remembers what Elon said about if he waits and observes he will lose out. He then remembers Kallian's mother on her deathbed telling him something about Kallian. The butler opened the door telling Romain that the queen had arrived. The maid tells them that she will bring a fresh set of tea, and Celise notices there was a guest before she didn't hear about it. Romain tells the maid to not bring more tea since Celise will be leaving soon. He then asks Celise what brings her there. Celise tells Romain what if the Brisen takes responsibility for the day's incident. Celise is biting her lips and gripping her fan tightly. Romain notes that Planche's slip of the tongue discouraged Celise, which meant her priority is Planche's position but is still as arrogant as ever. She tells him since the performance was impressive what he thought about rewarding Baton Poloon. Romain tells her the fact that she said that must mean she had something in mind. She asks him what he thought about the exclusive right that Brisen has over the supply of royal horses and management of stables. Romain is impressed that she is giving up the transactional value of her safe assets, just as Elon said. Before Celise came, Elon tells Romain that there is no way that Celise will give up the royal guards because of that, since she is not desperate enough to give them up yet. He continues that it's too important of a card for her to give up because of a slip of the tongue. However, she will offer an appropriate price, so Romain should pretend he doesn't know about it. Romain ponders if it was Elon's thinking or Kallian's thinking. Romain tells her that for the ball, Planche will enter with him. Celise gets excited since she got what she wanted and tells Romain Planche will be happy. In the ball last night, Romain and Planche entered the ball together, and as a reward for the performance, Poloon received exclusive right over horses and stables. Everyone knew that this was a deal between Romain and Celise for Planche, and they didn't think Brisen would accept the damages since what Planche said couldn't be ended as a mistake, which meant Kallian has risen to a point Celise is wary of him, and it was time for them to rethink their alliances. Kallian's room is full of gifts which he noted as too explicit. Yen asks him what he should do with the presents. Kallian says to himself, although it is a good thing that Planche and Brisen's power is diluting. Kallian tells them he doesn't need bastards who change their minds like bats and to send everything but the things they got from Poloon to the Mage Association. He also tells them to check who sent them. Kallian asks what Poloon sent. Poloon had sent a horse necklace to Kallian's shock. Kallian asks him that Poloon didn't give it for him to wear and asks Yen what he said. Yen told him Poloon asked what Kallian liked, and Yen told him that Kallian treasured Raven. Kallian never expected that Raven would get a necklace he has never received. Kallian notes that Poloon is trying to verify his intentions, and if he accepts it, he would think of sending another present to thank him for saving his life. Kallian smirks, thinking if Poloon knew the cost of his life and how mere jewels would be enough. Kallian tells Yen to ask the Poloon Emporium about the cost of the necklace and he will buy it. He tells Yen that he isn't buying it because he is fascinating, and what is fascinating is not the horse necklace but that flower. Yen tells him it is a present from the Mage Association. Kallian is weirded out since he heard mages had an eye for beauty and wonders why they sent such a strange flower. After reading about the explanation, he tells Kallian that after it dies, the pollen of the glow-in-the-dark flower spreads, and that is why some enthusiasts love this plant. After thinking for a while, Kallian starts to smile, and when Yen asks him if he should send it back, Kallian tells him to leave it and he has a fun idea. When the maid was opening the curtains, Yen called out to Kallian since he dropped the tea. Yen, concerned, asks him if he was burnt. Kallian tells him that he is fine and hand just slipped and he spilled all of the tea. Yen tells the maids to clean the floor, and Yen tells him that even the teapot toppled, landing on the flower. Yen asks him since he received it as a gift, Will the flower be okay? Kalyan tells him that it will be fine and it's not like there is poison in the tea. After hearing that, the maid starts to sweat and gets afraid. Kalyan tells them to leave the flower pot there since he quite likes it. Kalyan thanks Elon for helping despite being busy. Elon says it's not much since it's all thanks to the request of a certain prince who insisted on bringing the poison along with the antidote. Kalyan requested Elon to take him outside the palace. Elon says that Kalyan seems much happier than when he was at the palace. Kalyan says why wouldn't he be since he has been waiting to go out for the longest time. He almost said, for once. He says that it is his first outing in a long time and asks Elon if His Highness really allows it. Elon says he is not sure since he is probably receiving the report around this time. Kalyan knew he would do that, but he is in no position to talk since he told Yen he would back before midnight, but while leaving tells him he will come tomorrow morning. Elon says like master, like student, and Kalyan asks him if it meant in a good way. Elon asks him if he properly took the medicine and Kalyan said he took it and thanks to him his body is much lighter. He tells Elon that the person who gave him the tea was obviously nervous and he planted an interesting seed, so they will slowly be able to see. Elon says that his student is so talented there is nothing for him to do and if he needs him. Kalyan tells him that he needs Elon and the present he gave is going to be used in a valuable way. They then parted ways since Kalyan insisted on going alone and he couldn't stop Kalyan. Elon tells him that the Mage Association is in Tainansha Street and to come find him after he is done. Kalyan tells him that they will meet again when they are done with their own business. Kalyan went to a blacksmith and bought a dagger which is nice enough for him and other than a temporary sword. He put an order for a custom sword and all he needed was information. In order to spy on other nations, Secretia collects information by dispatching secret agents across the continent. They surpass the collection of regular information and have been managed by the country for a long time. They are trained assassins who were assembled by his father, to blank, and as well as him when he was Burin. He goes to the Neolangsha carrier pigeon rental shop. As much as he trained them, he knew how dangerous they were and his identity as Prince of Kairos. If they find out one of their targets is in the base, they wouldn't send him back in one piece. He then complains his eyes and hair stand out too much and needs to go around as quietly as possible. Entering the place, he notes that it is bigger than it seems. The person there asks if he wants a carrier pigeon and Kalyan says that the birds don't seem to wake up from their sleep. He tells Kalyan they sleep a lot. Kalyan tells him it seems they have flown in from a faraway place and seemed fatigued. The man asks why else they would sleep like that and Kalyan tells him since there is no better place to sleep for such an exhausted bird. The man then asks him what he came to find and Kalyan says he needs bird feed. The man says they sell bird feed there, but as he said that he slashed at Kalyan with the man saying he remembers not selling any birds recently. Kalyan knows he isn't your regular person and it will be difficult to take him on in Kalyan's body. Kalyan pushes the knife away saying that it's obvious and it just left its nest and came looking for feed. So there is no way he would have sold it. The birds represent secret agents who are collecting information. Secretia even keeps the identities of secret agents hidden from each other so in the event of a secret agent being caught, the information won't lead back to Secretia, which meant even if he said his father's name, when the man asks whose bird he is, he says he is Nebulade's bird, which shocked the man. Kalyan says to provide some feed for the bird which has just left its nest. He then became the first prince of Kairos, to use Secretia's secret agent to steal Kairos information. The man opens a door telling Kalyan to follow him. Kalyan didn't know there was a hidden space like that. The man tells him he must be a new recruit and to memorize his name since they will be meeting from now on and introduces himself as White Eagle. Kalyan says he is Red Swan. White Eagle asks him what feed he needs. Red Swan says he needs 1 item, 1 information. White Eagle asks for 8 plorin in advance. Kalyan asks himself since he is giving him the price before he tells him the information he wants and wonders if he is trying to trick him on purpose because he is trying to make him let his guard down. White Eagle says it's a fixed price and after paying he gives the item and feed he wanted. He reads the info and asks if it is really correct and White Eagle says based on the size of the space he requested, that is the only place. While Kalyan is leaving, White Eagle tells him to be careful and that it's a cruel place. Kalyan says to himself no matter how cruel the place is it can't be more dangerous than White Eagle. He then reaches a bridge and wonders what is going on in the middle of the night. Kalyan notes it's not good to attract attention, and according to the map, he needs to cross the bridge. He gets his path blocked and asks the person what the meaning of that was. The person apologizes and says that the deceased is setting off on their final journey, so if it isn't urgent, he requests them to stop for a bit. Kalyan notices they are in the middle of a funeral ceremony. He decides to wait since there is no need to intervene on the deceased path. The man thanks him. The customs of sending the deceased off are different in every nation. In Kairos, while red flowers drift along the river, if the living pass by the bridge, it is said the deceased will lose their way. In Secretia, they place a very special flower named sinaster atop the grave, and in the day, a white flower blooms, while in the night, blue flower blooms. The sinaster flower implies that the two will never meet, a custom to represent that the living and dead must part ways. He wonders if his brother placed a sinistar atop his grave or did time rewind before then. He thinks that maybe he is the deceased who lost his way. The man thanks him for waiting and he can go to the bridge now. He disregards his thoughts since he is the Kairos third prince now. While getting on Raven, Kalyan tells them that they will go in peace and he prays for their soul. The man then looks at him leaving and his colleague asks Arson what is wrong. Arson is the person who killed Kalyan when he was Burin. Arson says that Kalyan seems like a good person. On the way there, he saw many signs with the name Sisfanian written on them. But he thinks that the place he is going to, Sisfanian's deep scent of alcohol, is too much. The stories he heard from the secret agents as Burin were real. They said that the capital is like a place where Sisfanian's followers live and it is everywhere. When he is at the door, the person there says he will lead him to an empty place. Kalyan says he wants to go to the 4th floor of the building. The man then leads the way and brings him there immediately. After reaching there, the man tells him to have a good time. In the information he got, it was the location where illegal things take place within Kairesis. After he pulled down a handle, a secret door opened. The code of there being a 4th floor in a 2-story building meant it happens below and not above, and there is a hidden space in the basement. The information he needed isn't as simple as a card gambling ring where trivial money comes and goes. Even deeper and further down there hides an illegal gambling fighting ring. The people there were screaming at the fighter they bet on to do what they say. After the fight came to an end, bloody Gerard won again, making those who bet on white get their reward. It had the never-ending smell of blood, and it is the place where all humanity is erased. Kalyan finds it tremendously disgusting. A man comes up to him and asks him for the entrance fee, which he gives. The man then tells someone to take Kalyan to number 27. The white-haired girl comes up to them and starts to gesture to Kalyan to follow her, and Kalyan thinks she cannot speak. He then notices her ears have been cut, and it seemed like she didn't wear those clothes because she wanted to, and there is even a tracking device on her neck. This made it so she can't escape. She then pokes Kalyan's hand, gesturing at him by pointing at the plate. She was telling him to bet, and he played along with her until he got what he wanted. The rules of the place are simple. You bet money, people fight, and when the person you bet on wins, you get twice the amount back. 3 plorin becomes 6 plorin, 6 plorin becomes 12 plorin, and as the cycle repeats, Kalyan to everyone's shock makes 1536 plorin. Kalyan doesn't just want money. In the final battle at white, they have Bloodhammer Sean, and in the black side is the indefatigable boy. Kalyan is shocked by him there. Kalyan remembers Kiri saying he used to be trapped in a place where he earned money by fighting until his sister died. When Burin asked Kiri why he wants to become a knight, Kiri says he wants to become a sword and not a knight, Burin's sword. Kalyan then bet all his money on Kiri to everyone's shock. They start saying the guy doesn't know anything or he must be crazy. The announcer says Kiri hasn't won a single match yet, but will be able to redeem himself through today's match. A man tells Kalyan that that's a lot of money and to not squander it like that. He is saying it since he feels bad for Kalyan, but it will be better to bet on the other guy, and Kiri hasn't won once. He asks the girl if she has checked all of his chips on black and to check them carefully. The man says that it's not his responsibility if he loses all the chips he worked so hard to earn, and Bloodhammer Sean is really vicious. The audience tells Sean to end things properly and the dividends become tenfold, and to turn the rookie's nose flat. Kiri looks at Kalyan. Sean then says the newbie ambler will lose all his money while blinded by greed thanks to Kiri, who is somehow still alive. The fight then starts with Kiri blocking the first hit, but then getting hit by another punch which he blocked again. Sean then says he is too slow and kicks Kiri away, making him cough blood. The people there tell Sean to end it quickly and kill him. Colleen is getting nervous since without a sword he is getting completely beat up and he knows Kiri can beat him. Kiri tries to punch him, but Sean punches Kiri's faster, calling him a cockroach-like bastard. Sean then punches Kiri repeatedly, and when he was about to do the final blow, Colleen calls out to Kiri saying before he attacks to not expose his shoulder. He then listens to him, lowers himself and punches Sean in the stomach using his momentum. Colleen is happy that he did it. Colleen punches Sean in the face, breaking his tooth, knocking Sean down. To everyone's shock, Kiri won. The announcer in surprise announces that Kiri defeated Bloodhammer Sean and secured his first win. The people then scold Sean since they lost their entire fortune because of him. Colleen and Kiri then look at each other. Then someone comes to Colleen saying someone is looking for them and to follow him. In the room he went to, the person in charge says he is quite talented at making more than 6,000 plorin from 3 plorin. From behind Colleen, a man takes out his knife, and the person in charge there says they are worried about giving that much money to a kid like him. Colleen smirks, and he thought that they would at least try to strike a deal, but they are more stupid than they look. The man gets angry and asks him what is backing him up for him to act like that, and tells Colleen to take his hoodie off and to show his face. Colleen warns them that if he takes the hoodie off, things will get troublesome for them. The man says he is curious about what happens and signals his men to attack him. A man comes beside him and tells him to show his expensive face and just how great he is to be hiding. Colleen then stabs his arm with his blade to their horror. Colleen asks what is wrong, and he thought the only useful thing those guys had was sense. The man then gets afraid since they brought a crazy man who isn't afraid to use a knife. He says that it is too much money to give at once, and if he waits a bit, but Colleen taking his knife says he won't take the money and instead gives him monster-eyed Kiri. The man says that he just started to make the money and their master would not allow it. If he does that, then his head will be chopped off, and no matter how good he is with the blade, there is only one of him and they are in advantage in numbers. When he says he won't be able to give Kiri, Colleen uses his aura, breaking the table, almost killing the man. Colleen says that if he takes 6,000 plorin and his life, would he consider negotiation? To their horror, he used an aura. He then orders his men to bring Kiri immediately. Colleen will not be able to do it twice and his body won't hold out and needs to see this through the end. The man who went to get Kiri says that there is a problem. He says Kiri won't leave without Hina. Colleen hears her name and remembers Kiri telling him when he was burned that his sister chose death for herself, and after that he left the fighting ring while feeling anguished for not being able to protect her. The man then says that it doesn't matter if it's 2 or 3 people, just bring her. Colleen tells him that he will bring her himself. The scared man says they will prepare things so he can leave with ease. Colleen then puts his hand saying that he needs to take back his capital and entrance fee. Outside, Colleen is with Raven and Hina is holding on to Kiri, and he holds her closer. Kiri thanks Colleen for helping them, but why was he helping them? Colleen puts his hoodie on Hina, telling them to not be suspicious since he doesn't have any bad intentions. They then realize that the man is the 3rd prince of Kairos. Kiri then apologizes to him and dares to suspect him. Colleen tells him to not lower his head and that he isn't someone who has to. They are half-elf siblings with nothing in their name, and it is obvious what kind of lives they led. In the previous life, Kiri could not save Hina. Colleen advises Kiri about his habit of exposing his shoulder while fighting since it is a common practice among newbies who practice swordsmanship. Colleen asks Kiri if he wants to become a knight, and Kiri says he wants to be a sword that protects everything, not a knight. Colleen then hands him a sword saying he can't become a knight right away, and he will need to act as his shield for now. If he still wanted to learn the sword, even while doing that, he tells Kiri to come find him. Kiri asks him why he is giving them something so great. Colleen smiles and says it is because he needs a good sword. This is what Colleen can do to repay Kiri. In Tiansha Street at the Mage Association in Elon's office, Elon burns a paper of the news about Colleen telling Poloon. He felt uneasy about the chandelier above his head and Poloon discovering a severed rope. Elon wonders how the prince knew it. Colleen entered Elon's place and Elon asks him if he got into a fight and where all his clothes went. Colleen tells him something happened, but it wasn't a fight. Elon says seeing how Colleen is saying that, the business he dealt with must have been quite difficult. Kalyan tells him that it has been a long day for him since he got his hands on Kiri and set up a trap to find the culprit of the poisoned tea, and everything was going according to plan, but he still felt uneasy. He thinks it's because he did too much in a short period of time. Elon then starts to pour tea with his magic, and Kalyan says it finally looks like a mage's office. Elon is disappointed and asks him if he expected something like strange eyeballs or an unidentifiable soup boiling. Kalyan laughs and tells him he expected something like that. He says it is more normal than he expected, but the dagger on the table didn't match the vibe of the interior. He then notices the dagger being his own. Elon asks Kalyan why he thinks the blade is there, and he doesn't think it should be there. He then uses magic to throw at Kalyan's neck, which is too late to dodge. Elon says to Kalyan even with such a damaged body, he is quite fast since he used aura to use his own knife to deflect the one coming at him. Bringing the knife back, Elon says it is a magic tool made by Sasfanian and it copies the hidden weapon of the opponent. Elon tells him it is kind of a warning. Kalyan knows that Elon wasn't trying to attack him in the first place, but he was impatient and activated his aura. Elon says aura from someone who said they don't know how to wield a blade. As he heals Kalyan, he tells him since the day he first saw Kalyan, he thought their meeting was strange but made sense of it. But things got weirder since he remembers Romain saying Kalyan is afraid of horses. The noble said Kalyan has become a different person, and when he found out he was drinking poison, rather than being afraid, he showed bloodthirst. That energy belongs to someone who has spilled a bit of blood on their hands, and he also knew the accident that would have happened in the horseback riding performance and stopped it. Elon asks Kalyan to explain everything to his master. He then heals Kalyan, and Kalyan notes to someone he suspects the identity of and realizes that Elon wants to have faith in him. Kalyan says that he is not Kalyan and his real name is Burin Sakrisha. Kalyan then says about what happened with the axis of time. Elon sighs about the axis of time, and before that he asks if the original Kalyan is dead. Kalyan says he doesn't think so and he didn't know at first, but the original Kalyan is still there and can faintly feel the child's presence. Elon then says to Kalyan when they first met, said what he wanted wasn't the royal throne, and asks him what he wants again. Kalyan says he wants to stop the war and still doesn't know why Planche wanted the axis of time, and if the source remains, the problem will repeat and he needs to discover that and confirm it. Elon asks if what he wants is for him or Burin's brother Chase. Kalyan asks what he means. Elon says there is something he needs to know, and in Sakrisha there is only Crown Prince Chase. Chase was always the only son of the concubine, and the queen doesn't have a child. Someone called Burin doesn't exist here, to Kalyan's shock. He does not exist in Sakrisha or anywhere in the land, and wonders why, and if it is because he turned back time and if something went wrong. He wonders if something went wrong with time and space because he used the axis of time, and why he is in Kalyan's body. The body of Prince Kalyan, who had been living perfectly fine. Kalyan says to Elon he has been sensing him faintly and thought since he entered Kalyan's body. Someone entered his, but as long as he is there, Burin doesn't exist. He then realized that he had stolen someone else's life. Elon says that the current Chase is already securing his position as the Crown Prince of Sakrisha. And just as the past and present is different from what Kalyan knows, the future might have also changed. He tells Kalyan, the third Prince of Kairos, whose life is always at risk, does not need to worry about the Prince of Sakrisha, who has developed wonderfully. Kalyan then says Elon is telling him not to live tied to the past, and he knows what Elon is worried about, and to make one thing clear, the day he first opened his eyes in Kairos, he got rid of his desire to live as Burin. Kalyan asks Elon if he is okay with it, even though he isn't the true Prince of Kairos. Elon was wondering what he was concerned about, so he also made it clear that from the start there is only one person he formed an alliance with. Kalyan asks Elon if he was aware of the axis of time from the start, since it seemed like he recognized it judging from his reaction. The previous year around that time, Chase asked him about the axis of time. Although he traveled to Sakrisha in secret, he couldn't find anything except for the fact it wasn't made by a human. And a month ago he got the news that the axis of time had disappeared and asked Kalyan if he said he traveled back 10 years and arrived a month ago. At the time of his regression, the axis of time disappeared. Kalyan asks Elon why he thinks Kalyan regressed and why it disappeared. Elon stops him, saying it's a question they are unable to answer even if they think about it now, but there is someone they could ask. Someone who knows more than Ellen and someone whom the prince will meet soon, Sasfanian. He then remembers its coming-of-age ceremony soon. Roselita is the coming-of-age ceremony for the Kairos princes, a ritual where you let it be known you have become a true royal by finding Sisfanian's empty nest. That is the place where you can meet Sisfanian's will. Elon tells him to solve the issue with poison tea as soon as possible since he needs to safely see his coming-of-age ceremony. Kallian tells him the seed he planted should have sprouted. While Kallian is looking at the flower, he dropped the tea on. Yen tells Kallian he was very worried since someone who said they would originally be back at midnight said they would return at dawn as they were leaving. It is as Kallian expected and tells Yen to follow him to see something cool. They get to the terrace and Kallian knows that the flower he got as a gift from the Mage Association. After it dies, the pollen of the glow in the dark flower spreads. Because of how rare it is, not many know about its characteristics, and he accidentally poured the poison tea and observed their reactions. It is a harsh poison most people can't even endure for a week, so if a plant absorbs it, it is sure to die. However, the plant is perfectly fine, as if someone purposefully switched them. Yen then notices the pollen spreading, which was a very pretty sight. After switching, they can't easily discard it, so they must have kept it in the safest place, and that led him to the culprit. The culprit is the owner of Hija Palace, Celise. Kallian is looking outside the window while it's raining, and Yen enters the room. Kallian asks him if he slept well. Yen said he slept well and found it awkward hearing Kallian say the morning greeting. Kallian says he woke up early, and Yen says it is unexpected and gives him the tea, asking him if the sound of rain woke him up. When drinking the tea, it is slightly different from normal, and Kallian knew Celise increased the dosage of poison. Kallian asks Yen if there is any schedule that all nobles will be attending within the week. Yen tells him there is a noble conference that the king will also attend next week. After the noble conference, there will be a dinner banquet, and that day will be the perfect day to have enough of the poison tea. He hopes Celise will do her best till then. Kallian then eats the antidote, and Yen asks him what he has been eating for the past few days. Kallian says it's vitamins since his body is weak, and tells Yen they should get breakfast early today. Yen, looking at the teacup, wonders why it bothers him so much. After the horseback riding performance incident, Planche stopped coming down for breakfast. Kallian thinks it is the best for him since it wouldn't be good if Planche ruined what he plans. Kallian says the roses will bloom soon to Randall. Randall stares at Kallian quietly and leaves the room. Yen asks Kallian why he is suddenly mentioning roses. Kallian tells him he saw roses while on a walk, which reminded him of Randall growing roses, and there is no other meaning behind it. Kallian was running in the rain and took a rest while holding onto a tree, and Elon asks him as the days pass. His condition gets worse and asks him if he has a hobby of abusing himself. Kallian tells him if he missed stamina training, things will get out of hand, and asks Elon where he came from. He tells Kallian he had a short conversation with Romain. Kallian asks him if they are close enough to just call him by his name, and Elon says not really, but he calls him that one-sided, and Romain is young enough to be his grandson anyway. Elon asks Kallian why he called him, and Kallian says he has two things he wants to ask of Elon. The first being he needed the identities of two people and also investigated the suspicious cases the nobles were involved in, especially Brisen, which they said in unison. Elon says they are not difficult, but Kallian orders his old master around too much and he must be in a hurry. Kallian tells him she increased the amount of poison. Elon says it seemed he found out the culprit and has a feeling on knowing who it is. Kallian tells him she will soon keep him in check too. Kallian says it will be hard for her to outwardly do something to a great mage, but it is an important time for Elon to properly gain power. Elon tells Kallian that he wants to use Elon as a shield, but Kallian says not as a shield, but as a weapon. He knows the power of mages who are discarded better than anyone, the white demon army made up of mages who snatched his life and homeland. Kallian tells him he wants to create a mage corp. Elon is shocked hearing that and says mages are not knights, and if he knew that they are an organization that is difficult to grow through training. Kallian says to suppose it is possible, and Elon is shocked to hear that. Kallian tells him when Romain said he is making a mage corps, everyone looked down on him, and it wasn't worth their attention, thanks to which Romain could continue, and in the end he did it. But after the mage corps stabilized, Romain died from suspicious circumstances, and the mage corps was handed to Planche, the result of which Elon knows, but this time it won't be so easy. This time it will happen along the Brisen family's interruption, so Kallian is planning to negotiate using Celise poison tea. Elon asks him what method he will use, and Kallian says that it will take place soon. Elon, scratching his head, says it is a very trustworthy response. Colleen tells Elon to ask Romain for his opinion, since he is sure Romain has a lot on his mind. Colleen needs to use the moment when Celise has made a mistake and succeed in negotiating. The maid tells Celise as she ordered. They increase the dosage, and Celise tells her to deal with it properly, since the things she has been hearing are quite bothersome, and there should be nothing that bothers her anymore. The maid tells her she will keep it in mind, and Planche comes telling her she is up to no good after all. Celise tells him that the person who should be doing it is doing nothing, and she has no choice but to suffer like that. Planche went there to tell her not to bother, and Celise tells him that that's nothing for him who cannot do anything, to decide what she can do, and that suffering is also her unavoidable fate. Planche then leaves the place, and Celise calls him a weakling, and she will make sure nothing gets in his way. On the day of the palace entrance, Hina is in a good mood, and Kiri asks her if she is excited to meet the prince. Kiri asks her if she likes the prince, and she signals that she does and wants it to be nighttime soon. Yen tells Colleen that the conference is happening right now and he needs to attend the banquet in an hour. Colleen, pulling out letters, tells Yen that there is something Yen needs to do. It is finally time to end it, the poison tea given to the third prince, and putting an end to it. Colleen then entered the room where Celise was sitting. Colleen told Yen to give one to the Mage Association and the other to Elon, and he needs to go to the association first and then to Elon. Yen is shocked and asks Colleen if he is entering the banquet all by himself. Colleen tells him not to worry. Yen knows something similar happened before, but thinks he must be needlessly worrying and is sure nothing will happen to the prince. In the Mage Association, someone tells Elon that everything is prepared, and there is quite a lot, even though she only gathered the official cases. Elon was with Aurea Siren, the Kairos Mage Association president. Aurea says to think that it hasn't been revealed until now, and it seems suspicious. Elon tells her it's the fact that it could be revealed since weak nobles would not be able to file an interrogation against Brisson. Aurea says if they do, they will become the next mysterious case after all. She asks him how the prince is planning on using those materials. Yen then burst into the room, giving the two of them the letters from Colleen. After reading the letter, Elon asks Yen where the place the banquet is supposed to be held as he rushes out. Yen asks him what's wrong, and without an invite he can't enter. Elon tells him that this isn't the time to worry about that, and his master might die, to Yen's horror. In the letter Colleen wrote, he will make a deal with Celise with his life, and if something goes wrong, to please save him. An hour ago, it was only Celise and Colleen in the room, and after pouring tea, Colleen tells her that they will be frank with each other. Celise tells him to do that and wonders what will change even if they are. Colleen said that they should be frank and not to forego all etiquettes. Celise says she was wondering what he was going to say and asks him if all he wanted was an argument and regrets for feeling entertained for even a moment. Colleen brings up the poison tea and tells her to stop, and he has been patiently having it, but the repulsion is stabbing his throat. Celise says that she has no idea what he is talking about. Colleen says that so she didn't know about it, and since he thought that would be the case, he prepared a lot in advance, and he felt like he needs to put something on the line, and if he wants to make it so she can't do something like that in the future, but all he has is his sturdy heart and puts that in the line. He pulls out some poison, telling her that the poison briefly stops your heart. This is the thing he got from the White Eagle. He tells her it doesn't react to silver and won't be detected by magic tests. While putting the poison in the tea, he tells her since he has the power of the blessing, his heart won't stop, but it can only do one thing at a time, and while nullifying the poison he has been drinking will spread throughout his body, and if that happens, who will the people suspect first? Celise then starts laughing and asks him if he thinks things will go his way, and that this isn't her first time. She tells him who doesn't know that it was her who sent Callion's mother away from the world. Colleen asks her what he should do with the tea, and she tells him to drink as much as he can, and Colleen takes that as a rejection and drinks it. She calls him idiotic, since who does he think will dare suspect her, who even Romain can't treat recklessly. There was nothing Celise couldn't get in Kairos, which was the same for the Queen's throne. All she needed to do was get rid of nuisances on the way she wanted. That is how she gained everything one by one, except for one thing she still couldn't get. When the dinner banquet begins, Colleen starts coughing and Celine starts to smile since things are going her way. Colleen coughs harder, coughing blood and falling to the ground to everyone's horror and shock. She regards Colleen as the stepping stone for her rise. Romain orders the people to call the priest. People then ask if it is poisoning. The people talk amongst each other if there is poison in the drink, and even His Majesty has yet to drink, so it is not possible he has. They think he was poisoned prior to this, and when someone asks who was with Kalian before the start of the banquet, a noble shushes them. He warns them to be quiet if they don't want to lose their head. They tell each other things will be brutal for a while and to watch their words. Celine starts smirking because nobody can dare say she is the culprit and is her victory once again. Romain rushes over to Kalian and holds him, telling him to keep it together. He panicking asks where the priest is. When Kalian calls out to Romain, it reminds Romain of Kalian's mother on her deathbed telling him to protect their son. Romain then starts to get angry. Celise tells them such an unfortunate deed could happen in the palace and couldn't stay there from the shock, and that she will return to Hija Palace. Romain then says if she is trying to kill his son too. Celise. To everyone's shock, he called her out, even Celise. The people then start to talk, saying the queen and Kalian were there first, and ask if she poisoned him during that time, and it made sense since if it were the queen everyone was quiet. Celise tells him she has no idea what he is talking about, and she heard Kalian was always ill. Romain, angry, tells her even when Freya collapsed. She said the same thing after gathering all of Brisen's knights. Celise thinks even if Romain acts like that, he can't make her the culprit, and continues saying who said that child was normally healthy because there is no one who would agree with his words. She then says after thinking about it, the princes meet every day for breakfast, must know about Kalian's healthiness. Romain tells her it is enough, and she continues saying that it is because she is worried because he is making such a fuss and is worried that Kalian, their child's state will worsen more. Romain, ready to take out his sword, tells her how dare she, and before he can complete it, Planche says of all people she shouldn't be calling Kalian our child, to their shock. He tells them Kalian was fine and never felt that there was anything wrong with his health, and Kalian also told them not to trouble themselves, angering Celise. After the priest reaches the room, Celise says she is leaving, and Romain tells the priest to heal him. Before he can do that, Elon stops them, asking them why they just kill him. Romain yells at Elon, asking him what he is doing now, and Kalian needs treatment. Elon tells them Kalian has a circle in his heart, and if a mage's circle combines with holy power, they should be aware that even if they are lucky, their heart will explode and will die. Romain asks if holy power doesn't work, is it possible with magic? He tells her if it's a healer with the power of nature, it might be possible, but with magic it isn't. Romain tells him to find a method quickly and that Kalian is in pain. Elon remembers when his son died, when he didn't know why he was. Elon puts Kalian in his lap, and Kalian wonders why he has such an expression. Elon didn't think that he would use that spell in his lifetime again. It is a magic that will make him feel no pain, abitundant. There were papers all over the streets flying about the Bryson family's actions done by the Mage Association. It contained news such as the Bryson family having killed 37 people. Bryson has met a typhoon. Suspicions of the queen poisoning Prince Kalian and the evil deed of the Bryson family have entangled, causing public uproar. The nobles decide that they can't be involved with Bryson, and if they make a mistake they will be swept up in it too. There were calls to extract Queen Celise. Elon tells Romain that Kalian said that for the foundation of a mage corps, they need to utilize a situation where Celise is forced to the end of her rope. Romain is shocked hearing that, since that is what he wanted to create, and that Kalian had the same thoughts as him. In Kalian's room, Celise tells him that the Mage Association must be quite busy and asks him when they prepared something like that. Kalian smiles and tells them that he has no idea what she is talking about and that he got to rest for a long time thanks to her consideration. She heard that he was on the verge of life and death for a week, but his voice is fine. Kalian tells her that he almost went to the afterlife, so it will be difficult for him to talk for long, and if she has nothing more to say, he wants to rest. Celise asks him what he thinks of exchanging one by one. Kalian says she should have said that a week ago and the situation has changed, and tells her that he will hear what she has prepared. Celise tells him if he says that the materials are not the truth, then she won't object to what he is preparing. Kalian starts to laugh hysterically, telling her it seemed like she misunderstood something and that he doesn't need something like permission from the queen in the first place, and asks her if she has anything else. Celise tells him to say what he wants. Kalian tells her that on the land that Sisfanian's descendants rule, how could the sound of swords clashing be so loud, and tells her to recall the Pable Knights Corps completely getting rid of a place for the Bryson to stand there. Celise is stunned hearing that, the Pable, the royal knights that Marquis Brisson gifted to Celise, in order to oppose the king's royal guards. Losing that means she is losing half her power. Colleen tells her that there are no other compromises. Colleen then points at Yen, telling him to give her the paper. He gives her the pledge, which contains the Seal of Oath. Seal of Oath is a magic that engraves the contract into each other's hearts, and if the oath is infringed, the heart is destroyed and death follows immediately. Randall receives the news that Queen Celise visited Colleen as soon as he woke up. Randall, looking at the rose, remembers before Colleen collapsed. Their eyes met and remembers him saying the roses will bloom soon. Randall realizes that Colleen had been planning on bringing him into the game from the beginning. He was curious how the roses would bloom, so he was thinking of acting the way Colleen wanted for once, but Blanche stood up. He knows something is changing. Colleen uses the Seal of Oath since the trust in their relationship isn't very strong and asks her what she will do. She takes the quill off of Yan's hand and signs it, creating the Seal of Oath, and the contract is complete. When Celise is about to leave, Colleen says to not get things misunderstood. He tells her he never had a good relationship with his brothers, and that day Blanche didn't stand up for his sake. Colleen tells her if she had said one more thing, the king's sword would have cut her head off on the spot. Celise then leaves the room. Elon had come there shocked, hearing Celise had visited, but it seemed like Colleen, who was eating bananas, was very hungry. Colleen tells him the bananas are delicious, and Elon, suppressing his anger, tells him that he barely survived, so anything is delicious. Colleen, smiling, tells him that he has done his part, and Elon asks him how he can even smile since Elon could be visiting his grave if the elf siblings didn't appear right at that moment. They were lucky that Hina is a healer that deals with the power of nature. Colleen says he didn't know Hina was a healer either and was really shocked. Elon asks him if he didn't know that in his past life, and Colleen says he only had ties with Kiri back then, and when he met Kiri, she was already dead. Elon then angrily asks Colleen that he was saying he ingested poison with the sole belief in the power of blessing, saying that he was fed up with poison and brought a raw poison and ate it. Elon, still angry, asks him what he thinks he did, and he was bedridden for almost a week without countermeasure, and what he is going to do in the future. Colleen then apologizes, offering him a banana. Elon then gives Colleen a paper, which are the identification certificates for the children he requested before. Colleen said he forgot about it and asks if it was hard to make a counterfeit certificate, and is stunned looking at the names Kiri Burin and Hina Burin. Elon tells him they said they needed a last name for a certificate, and he borrowed Elon's old name since it didn't seem like he brought these kids intentionally. Colleen thanked him, and it was a proper identification and not even counterfeit, and to think he made them for commoners in his territory. Elon tells him Romain did it. Colleen is shocked hearing that, and Elon tells him how he feels after rumors of being the son that the king so deeply cares about spreads. Colleen asks if there are such rumors, and Elon tells him Romain acted like that in front of the nobles there would be such rumors. Colleen tells him what he feels, and it is something someone else should have felt. Colleen, when asking Yen to take the banana peels, Yen tells him that he wants to quit being his attendant. In the furthest room on the right side of the second floor, a kid Yen enters the room of his brother. He had left a long sense of grief there. Yen asks him if he heard the sounds of cicadas in the morning, and when summer comes, those black ugly things cry like crazy, and that their wings look weird, and he guesses they made such a loud sound from their stomachs. Yen asks him if he should catch one to see the next day. His brother tells him that he'd rather not look at those, and he feels like they will look like monsters, and tells Yen to play some violin instead. Yen overhears that his brother's condition continued to worsen, and he heard that Elon's son was good at medicine, but he was busy with something else. At that time, he didn't know that telling someone who cannot have anything, something they cannot have, would be horrific. His brother tells him to look him in the eyes and stop avoiding the fact that he is dying. The house was on fire, and the elders told them to take Yen and leave since the fire is getting worse. And that is how his brother, the day before his coming-of-age ceremony at 15 years old, chose to leave everything on his own. After that day, seasons passed until the sound of cicada filled the air again and continued to lock himself away. His father couldn't bear to see him like that, forced him out of his room. He then asked him while being carried who that child was. He tells Yen that he is the third prince who was sitting by the fountain. Yen and Callion's eyes first met there. Kallian asks Yen what he is talking about, and Yen tells him even though he was the closest to Kallian, he knew nothing, and his hand is the one that delivered the poison tea. Kallian noticed something was off, and Yen kept saying it was because of him and ignoring the things that bothered him. Kallian was calling out to him, but Yen continued he couldn't even be by his side when in danger and didn't know anything, and again he almost died. He remembers his brother telling him not to ignore the fact that he was dying. Kallian finally makes Yen snap out of it and tells him to look at him and asks him who is standing in front of him. Yen, who was crying, says it is Prince Kallian. He tells Yen that he is not going to die, and from the moment he first opened his eyes, Yen was the one who stayed by his side, and it was thanks to him he was able to endure it and was able to survive because Yen didn't ignore him. Kallian tells him that he also has a lot he doesn't know about Yen, but he is certain that Yen will continue to protect him. Yen, who was still crying, was getting consoled by Kallian. Yen tells himself to his father that he might not be able to go back. Kallian tells Yen to hurry up and take his hand. He had finally found a person he needed to protect for the rest of his life. Yen tells Kallian he will get rid of the people that made him like that while picking up the peels. Kallian asks him what he is talking about and if he is going to avenge him. Yen tells him that he is that hurt. Kallian tells him to quit it and elephants should stay put or he will start a war. Yen tells him to forget the war, even if he is not working under the identity of the Siegfried family, and stops realizing Kallian called him an elephant. Yen, shocked, asked him if he knew, and Kallian shrugs him off with Yen asking since when, and Kallian says somehow. Yen tells him this isn't something he should know about and says that he hates his dad. Kallian tells him that once he gets rid of the bananas to get him a cup of coffee. Kallian then asks Yen if they want to bet on whether he will get taller than him or not. In a dream, Burin sees Kallian. Kallian walks towards him and runs away to an imaginary Yen. Kallian looks at Burin. Burin holds out his hands for him, but Kallian tells him something, waking him up. Kallian, while conducting a funeral for the previous Kallian, Elon asks him if he completely left in the end. Kallian tells him that he thought he might have wanted to enjoy what he longed for before leaving, but he was in such a rush and left. Kallian told him that he will give that life to him and to make sure he achieves what he wants. Kallian says if this life was like shackles to that child, he is a little jealous of his complete freedom. Kallian tells Elon that he won't pretend not to know after all of that there are lots of things he started and the favors he has been asked. He will properly live his second life. The Pable Knight Corps was quickly dissolved and returned to Marquis Brisson. Romain said to not believe the baseless rumors around the royal family. Elon announced he will create a mage corps. 3 months later, Yen and the maid say that they need to call the tailor. Yen tells her to tell him that there are many clothes they need to mend and the current clothes are too small. Kallian enters the room where Romain and Elon are. Romain tells him that he has gotten even taller than the last time he saw him. He says that he seems even taller than Planche, and it is good to see that he gained some weight. Romain asks him if he is finished preparing for Roselita. Kallian tells him he has completed them all since it is his birthday soon after all. Elon tells him that there is someone he needs to introduce him to, which is why Kallian was called. He will be the mage who will be his guard for the Roselita. The man enters the room and says it's an honor to meet him and introduces himself as Arsene Hertz. Kallian is horrified to see him. Romain tells him that he is a talented figure who will be a part of the Mage Corps, so he hopes they learn and get closer along the way. Kallian then angrily tells him it is quite unexpected and what a special birthday present. Kallian asks when the Mage Corps will be formed, and Elon says it won't be anytime soon and they don't even have a name yet. From the number of people to the uniform, nothing is confirmed and there is still a long path ahead of them, and it was a start. Elon asks Romain if he would like to name it, and he feels like he might have something in mind as he has been thinking of this for a while. Romain says he has something in mind. As Kallian makes a smiley face, Romain says the name Valkan. Elon says that it's almost as if he was waiting to be asked and would have been troubling if he hadn't asked. Kallian asks what Hertz thinks, and he asks about what. Kallian says if the name Valkan he likes it or is it familiar. Elon then looks at Kallian and Hertz says it's a good name. Elon puts up a barrier and is shocked hearing the relationship between Kallian and Hertz in the past and asks if he should rescind his recommendation. Kallian tells him there is no need. Romain says if it is as Kallian says that Hertz is the one who killed him. He says the current and past hurts are different as just as the situation has changed. He is sure that the future he knows might not come. However, he still feels wrong to just let things pass like that as Hertz shudders somewhere. Kalyan goes to Poloon and Poloon greets him. Kalyan says it has been a while and to make himself comfortable. He apologizes for hiding his name and stopping by without contacting him. Kalyan has never allied with any nobles until now, and the fact that he visited in secret is out of consideration for the gazes that would have come his way. Kalyan tells him he won't speak in circles and will just get to the point and is there to collect his price for saving his life, and asks him what the Poloon Emporium likes to trade. Poln has recently officially started to trade diamonds and is even trading horses with the imperial family, but the answer Kalyan wants isn't that. Poloon tells him he still doesn't have something to trade. Kalyan smiles and asks him if he can operate something else apart from the Emporium. Poloon says if he has the people and the funds, it won't be a problem. Kalyan tells him he has the people and money, but Brisen has that too. Poloon then says he thought he had Kalyan though. Kalyan was silent. Kalyan starts to laugh, saying he is correct and they have him as well. Poloon tells him if they had money, as well as Kalyan in front of Brisen, it won't be a problem. Kalyan tells him they are planning on making a mage corps and they have enough money and people to manage the mages, but the problem is running it. Poloon asks him if that is the cost of his life. Kalyan tells him he has already received the cost of his life. Poloon says that he will do it readily. Normally Kalyan is supposed to die at his 15th coming of age ceremony, but he changed his fate before then and has people he can trust by his side. The only thing that is left is meeting Sisfanian's will at his Roselita and asking why all of that happened. Kalyan enters a room and the people congratulate him for his 15th birthday. Kalyan notes all preparations are complete. Kalyan tells Planche that it has been a while and Planche calls Kalyan Blood Eyes. Kalyan tells Planche he won't let things slide anymore and his name is Kalyan. Planche tells him that he is not Kalyan to Kalyan's horror. Planche says he rides horses, uses swords, and even talks back and asks him who he is.